Greetings, friends. It's James Keating once again, speaking to you about something that has been asked several times recently, and that is what I think about the difference between those arts that are known as hands back and the others as hands front. Hands back and hands front refer to where we place our hands, referring to chamber, as in karate and some kung fu styles, even silat. In most martial arts, you'll find one hand back, palm up, while the other is extended, palm down, either in a striking or parrying motion. The hands front arts are more like what we see in other types of silat or kali, or Thai boxing, Western boxing. The hands are held in front, both hands, whereas, as I was pointed out, one hand is usually back in chamber. Now, there's reasons for this, and I'm not going to go into what is better or what isn't better, because that's personal choice. I think that's what sometimes people wish me to do, is take a side. And when you take a side, you then alienate the other one. It's like you're telling it it's no good. And that's really not the case. I don't want that sort of thinking. That's called, they polarize. It's like the poles, the South and North Pole. Those are the extremities. When you go to either extreme of the scale, it's not so good. You have to meet somewhere in the middle in order to, the equator, to get the full picture. So I don't want to polarize and go to an extreme and villainize one group while I champion another. It makes no sense. What does make sense is to understand both purposes, both reasons, and maybe learn about them so that you have ability using both methods. Wherever I place my hands, I'll be comfortable. Many people think by putting your hands back into the classic karate chamber is more like a finishing punch. The way I understood, after many experiments and tests, that this type of punching was more of the do, meaning the path of the life path. It was developmental. If you wish to develop your arms, now again, we're not using weights here, we're using movement. We're not using weight machines, devices. It's just your arm, your body. So when you move in this manner, you learn to punch as in a karate style. This is a developmental method. It develops your body, your muscles, your bone structure is in alignment. It's actually healthy, developmental. Nothing wrong with it. But is it the hardest punch? That may be debated. You know, it may not be. The other you see is more, the hands front arts are more often seen in the competitive circuit, not the self-defense circuit. And it doesn't mean they're any way better. It just means you're fighting someone in the street where the situation is different than fighting someone in a ring who's another professional. And you need your hands up. You have to portray that. It's a fight in a ring. Often to raise your hands or do something as you would in a boxing guard, this is a signal to fight. The hands back is more like a signal to hold on, you're going to get hit. People say the hands back is slower. In some regards, it just depends who's doing it and why they're doing it. I don't myself really see it as slower. I see that it has quite a bit of power when it's done correctly, because it comes from a long ways back. It's hard to get a hold of that hand since it's back along that individual's rib cage. So in a society where you maybe grabbed someone who knows a grappling art, who wishes to get a hold of your limbs or trap your limbs, well, putting one hand back and striking with the other, it might be a good idea, because one hand remains free. No one has grabbed it, no one has trapped it. With the hands free, with the hands forward art, you notice there's a lot more trapping. there's a lot more grabbing, compromising. And say, why is that? Well, because the hands are available. So they're easy to touch or maneuver, slap around. It's part of the guard. The guard that's there is a good guard, but it also is an opportunity. And my teacher used to say a block should not be looked at as your punch got blocked. It should not be looked at as a failure. It should be looked at as an opportunity or chance to catch that limb. So any block is a jamming point, a catching or locking point, because they put their hands to your hand. And if your punch is blocked, you pull the hand back and try again, that was a failure. But if you practice the sticking type arts and your hand goes out, they block. This is opportunity. You can now own that hand that touched yours. The hands front and hands back type arts are also predicated upon, am I impelling or repelling the adversary? What am I doing? What is the nature of this art? So we wish to stick in many cases, not just hit and run, but once we hit or parry or whatever we're doing, we stick. This again allows us an entry ability that others may or may not have. It depends how you interpret your art. So I really do believe that if I were advising someone, learn both. Understand those motions. See why their mechanics are applied the way that they are. Make a little mini study for a week or two, and just appreciate both ways rather than trying to separate them and make one into this or that as best or worst. Understand why boxers do what they do. Understand why a karate man does what they do. Understand why some judo players use clothes, meaning the kyogi, the gi, or the belt, or a suit coat, a jacket. Many arts do not teach the use of clothing. They strike, they hit, they do many things. But judo is unique as jiu-jitsu in that it uses clothing. So their hands will be held differently than those of the karate man or the boxer, because those fellows intend to grab you, throw you, and put you down, perhaps choke you out with a lapel choke. So where we place the hands is largely due to how that art teaches us to interpret what's occurring before us. So we assume we hear this all the time in movies, things like this. They say, assume a fighting stance. Okay, so that's a guard and a position, my legs, my hands. It's a fighting position. I'm ready. This is like the boxer. He's more upright, though. His hands are in front of him. So these are ready positions, yes, and it is us interpreting what is about to occur to us through the lens of the art which we study or practice. If you have a wide range of study where you know grappling arts, you know MMA for that matter, but where you may have studied Aikido, Judo, Karate, different striking, Western boxing, and then forms of body lever as in Silat and Kali, things like this, you have a whole bunch of positions that you can play off of. This goes back to the 5 universal positions. Those are more than just moving of the arms. Those 5 universal positions, the 5 keys of Kali, they really are part of your overall guard methodology. And sometimes one hand is back in those. So the best I can say to answer the question about superiority of hands back or hands front is know them all, including those of the grappler, and why they use committed grabs, non-committed grabs, and how the rest of your body can relate to what is going on, not just your hands. To even look at and isolate just the hands and the guard, to me, is rather limited thinking, because everything goes with the hands. As we know, a wrestler uses his arms differently than a boxer, but the wrestler will use his chin. The boxer will only use it like in a clinch. He uses shoulder to strike. What about the rest of the body? So take your study further and see how it all connects. You're fighting with your body, not just your arms and hands. I'm Jim Keating. Thanks for listening.